Welcome to a new research method class. So today lesson is about publication quality figure for both written and oral communication. So what by the end of this lesson you should learn why do we need do you need like a publication quality figure, what is a publication quality figure, and how to make publication quality figure. So that's one thing you will learn. Second thing you should learn by the end of this lesson is how to complicate complex idea using conceptual diagram. And third learning objective is how to create a visual abstract that generates the reader interest. So let's start. So why do you need publication quality figure? Because think about it, like you have been doing this work for months or even years, and now you are about to share your finding to the world. So your figure quality will reflect the quality of your work. Also, figures tells a concise story. A good report or a good research paper, you can just read it by the figures. So like you look at the first figure, it tells you part of the story. You move to the second figures, of third figures, of fourth figure. You just learn the method, you learn the results, and you learn like the significance of these results just from the figure. If you can make these types of figures, and you have a great publication quality figure that reflects also the quality of your figures and the quality of your work. Poor quality figure could increase the annoyance level of the reviewer. What does this mean? So the reviewer will, again, if your figure has poor quality, that might indicate that your work has a poor quality. But the reviewer will read something from the text. If it's not clear, he will start looking at the figure. If like the figures is not clear and the text is not clear, that will increase his annoyance level, which could increase the chances that your manuscript will get rejected, because he will not waste his time trying to guess what you are doing. Yeah? It should be clear, and it should be legible also. You should be able to read it, because he's not going to get a magnifying glass to read your work. Yeah? Also, a publication quality figure, you should avoid making fraudulent figure. Fraudulent figures, this could be by manipulating the figure, by removing, for example, your outliers, or by, for example, using some color schemes to emphasize something and give the impression that something is important while it's not important, by just choosing like certain color schemes. Yeah. This could lead to the rejection of your manuscript if the reviewer noticed this. But even if the reviewer didn't notice this, after your manuscript get published, when the reader might notice this, then it could lead to retraction, and hundreds of research paper get retracted. Yeah. Okay. So before we discuss what is a publication quality figure, let's first look at what is not a publication quality figure. So I want you to just pause like this video and look at this figure and see what's wrong with this figure. Like what are mistakes or careless mistakes and other mistakes that you can identify in this figure, and how to improve a figure like this. So, okay, so by just looking at this figure, I can tell. You see the font here, very small font. Yeah, you see, I don't even, it's not even clear. Yeah, but even here, the font is smeared. So you see, like the font, like because like not only the font size issue, but you see like the text is smeared. Yeah, so that's obvious problems that you see here. Another thing you see here, like see this legend, it's only one color and here is another color, but they have a different scale. Like if you look at this one and this one, they are not consistent. So that's like another problem. The third problem is I don't know what these things are. What are these abbreviations? And so if I don't know this, I would look here. Scatter plot for non-carcinogenic risk of aluminum in Shiraz drinking water. Group A children, Group B adolescent, and Group C adults. I mean, can you figure out where is Group A, Group B, Group C? No. I mean, you look at this abbreviation. Do you know what do these stand for? No. Yeah. So that's like a third issue. Fourth issue, like here, this is 350. Like this label here. I mean, what is here? Is this like 0? Is this negative 350? And what's here? Is it like 700? Is it like 200? You can never tell because you only have one value here. Yeah. So this is like another issue, for example, that you can notice here. A third issue, like I'm just putting this figure caption here, but like a third issue, like the original figure has all this space that is not used. So you have like inefficient use or inoptimal use of the figure space. These are just like few issues that we could identify, like with respect to how like this figure look like. But a more critical issue is I don't understand anything from this figure. It's just I don't know what this figure is telling me. This figure is not telling me any story here. I cannot, by looking at the figure and by reading this, I cannot make any story. Yeah. So let's look here. So it's a legible figure, small font, like you have all these small font issues. Smeared data, you have like the data here is smeared here. Missing or non-standard access labels. So here, like your access labels is missing. You're missing like access label here. Poor resolution. So the figure in general has like poor resolution, and even I would say poor like a choice of color here. And see like here, you cannot small font color and poor resolution. I don't know what is this Y, like even the legend label Y. I don't know what is this Y is. That's another acronyms not defined, like this Y is not defined, like all these acronyms are not defined. Inconsistent style, like so inconsistent axis ticks. So the axis ticks here it has 1, here it has 3, here it has 3, here it has 2, so it's inconsistent. Inconsistent legend, so the legend here is not consistent among like these two figures. So this start from 0 to 0.02, for example. I don't know anything about this, I cannot even read it. This start from negative something, so it is inconsistent. So if I'm a reviewer and I see something like this, I get annoyed, and I will that like the more your annoyance level will increase, the more you will recommend this to rejection. Yeah. Improper sizing, so the layout and space not optimally used. So I have all this space here, which is like not used. Yeah. Okay. So this is not a publication quality figure. And if you are doing this figure for your manuscript, for the report that you sent to your client, it is unlikely that this client will continue asking your company to do work for them. Yeah. Okay. So unclear figure purpose. That's the most critical thing. I don't know what this is about. Yeah, unclear figure purpose. So let's look at here. This is like another example. So here the problem of this one is like I have too much data. Like here this is from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1. Do I really need this, or one of them would just be sufficient for these 4 subplots? Similarly here, like from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, here, here, here. Like, do I need this one? Do I need this guy? Do I need this guy? Or this guy should just be sufficient for these 3. Yeah. So here, like, you have too much data on the x-axis and the y-axis, and like the data is even smeared because there's too much data. The data is smeared. Yeah. What is the problem here? So the problem of this figure, again, you have like too much data that you don't need, so here I tried to avoid this smearing issue by making the space between these figures larger. But now here I have a non-optimal use of space. I have a lot of empty space, and unnecessarily data or unneeded data. Yeah. So if you address these issues, then you will have a publication quality figure. Let me show you an example. This is an example. Like, is this a publication quality figure? Someone might say, oh, it's full of information. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, if the figure is full of information, that is good. Like, the most important thing, is it legible? You ask yourself, is this figure legible? And is it understandable? Does it deliver like a story? And let's look at these two like criteria: legibility and the story that this figure is delivering. So by just looking at this figure at the first sight, you will say, oh, this has a lot of information. That's fine. But now I can start walking through this figure. Now this is a calibration data, okay? And this is validation period. So this is calibration period and this is validation period. So now I learned something, like I have a model. This is the data that was used to calibrate this model and the model simulation during the calibration period. And then I use this model, I make future projection, and that would be the validation period. And here, that I would expect here to be time. So here from 0 to whatever, like that would be like maybe 2/3 of my year, and then that would be the last third of my year. Yeah. Now I see here, this is probably, and this data will go for all of them, and this data will go for all of them. Yeah. Now here, this is a flux. So there's some flux of something like chemical, of gas, or whatever. In that case, it's like CO2 flux. Yeah. And it's in micromole per meter square per second. Okay, so I have this some gas flux. Okay. So this is just what I was able to understand without reading the figure caption. Yeah. So now let's read the figure caption and see what more will I understand. Yeah. So figure caption say observation data, blue dots. So these are these blue dots here that I see here. So this is my observation data. Mean prediction. So I have a model here, which is the name of this is SLS, for example. It has, this is the mean prediction, and credible interval, that is the red line. Credible intervals, this is like the variance, like, or the standard deviation of this prediction. So here, see, here is very small, here is more wider, which means, and that's exactly like what this figure is showing you that if you use this SLS, it will underestimate your uncertainty, versus this one, it does not underestimate your uncertainty. Okay. But again, what are these things? Yeah. So these are for, like, all these are for 6C soil respiration model. So now I know that these are prediction of soil respiration model. Its name is 6C. So in that case, this flux would be like CO2 flux, because soil respiration, when you do respiration, you release CO2. Yeah. Giving 8 likelihood functions. So now I understand this SLS, SP, WS, this guy, this guy, this guy. These are 8 likelihood functions. And this is what this manuscript is about. Like, we are comparing different likelihood function and see how it affects your prediction, the model calibration and prediction. Yeah. So now I can compare this 8 likelihood function during calibration and validation period for one model. Okay. The model prediction accuracy, reliability, and dispersion and overall predictive performance are measured by Nash model efficiency and SME. So that will tell you the model prediction accuracy. So here, like you see this number, the predictive coverage. Predictive coverage means like I'm covering all like my data. So you see here's this model, for example, some of the data is not covered by it. This one is covering all the data. Yeah. And sharpness matrix. Sharpness tell you like how wide or narrow this is, and like the relative model score that will give you the overall model performance. So now this figure with this caption, you can now see the, if you understand these terms, like what does model efficiency mean, what does predictive coverage mean, now you can compare. It will take you some time to read it, yeah, and to be able to compare like different likelihood function on the model prediction. Yeah. Okay. So now this will tell you a story. Like if you understand this manuscript, if you're reading this manuscript, you will look at this figure and then it will tell you a story. So like the story here, for example, that this guy underestimate uncertainty versus this guy does not underestimate uncertainty. This guy, you will not be able to capture like this peak fully here. You will not be able to capture this peak fully here, versus this guy you are able to capture all your data within your ensemble. Something like this. Here, this guy is underestimating this peak, but it's not underestimating the variance, the uncertainty, because you see this is wide, but like you're still missing these peaks. So on. Yeah. So you can just make this a story. Yeah. And then like the meaning of these things, you will know them from the main text. So basically here, 4 function, and this is 4 likelihood function, and these are the same likelihood function, but with by accounting for autocorrelation. Yeah, here without accounting for autocorrelation, and here with accounting for autocorrelation. Something like this. Yeah. Okay, let's look at another example. Is this a publication quality figure? Yes. Why? Because you see the legend, it's common for all of them. So instead of having each figure with its own legend, I just have one legend for all of them. So now I can compare like these two, like all these figures. Yeah. So this is sea surface height. The legend. Remember in this figure here, like I don't know what this is, but here the legend is clear. Sea surface height above geo ID and in meter, and I have this range. Yeah. Now, what does this mean? So monthly snapshot of sea surface height above geo ID in meter from February to June. So that would be February, May, that would be February, March, April, May, and June. Okay, so that would be like the 6 of them. So here from A to E for a high resolution Earth system model. So this is a high resolution Earth system model. And from F to J, that is for standard resolution Earth system model. And I'm saying like this has a resolution of, actually this is a typo, this is like 25 kilometer. Just correct this typo here. That's 25 kilometer. And this is for the 100 kilometer respectively. Okay, so now you can see like story, like so here this one, for example, this is like this red dot you see here, this is a loop current, this is an ocean current that circulate inside the Gulf of Mexico. So like the one with high resolution, it can simulate this phenomena, versus the one with low resolution, it cannot simulate this phenomena. So you see from February to June, and this is from February to June. Okay, so now you can see the story. Okay, now, uh, like the last question, so now we know why do we need publication quality figure, what is a publication quality figure, like how to make publication quality figure. So you need a lot of softwares like these figures that I did. So this one, for example, I did this with Python. This one I did it with MATLAB. But in addition to Python and MATLAB, you might also need some graphic editors. So you need visualization analysis software. So some of these visualization analysis softwares that can you just pause the video and think of some softwares that you used before to make like figures. So that would include like Excel, for example. That would include MATLAB, as the one I showed you. That could include like Python. That could include ArcGIS, or that could include Penelope, for example. So here are some examples. So these are some examples of softwares that I use myself to make some publication quality figure. The one in blue are the ones that are available for free, and the other ones. So Excel is not free, but online Excel that's free. MATLAB is not free, but Octave, which is a free version of MATLAB. Python is free. TechPlot, that's for making 3D, like for making 3D data and making cross-section and sectional view and things like that. So that's a very powerful tool if you have like 3D data and you want to make cross-section, you want to animate it, and you want to look inside this data. That's a great tool for that. ArcGIS and QGIS, that's for geographical, if you have geographical spatial data. So this is not free, this one is free. And Penelope, this is for if you have NetCDF file. And NetCDF file, you can open it with MATLAB, you can open it with Python, but this can just visualize it. A quick visualization you can do with Penelope. NetCDF files that like climate data, for example, Earth system model data, and so on and so forth. So like this, like the data that you see here, this is NetCDF data. So you can visualize this with Penelope, but it will not make like these subplot, it will just visualize it one by one, yeah? Or you can, this particular figure, I just prepared it with Python, yeah? But there, like before, like you select which tool you use, there is like one simple thing you need to understand. You need to understand like there are two types of data analysis software, or like two like your graphical editors. Like what graphical editors do you need? So for graphical editor, there are raster graphical editors and there are vector graphical editors. So you need to understand the difference between like a raster image and a vector image. So raster graphical editors, that for example will include like Adobe Photoshop, yeah? And free version, like if you don't have a license for this, a free one would be like GIMP, yeah, this software. Yeah. A vector graphical editor, an example would be like Adobe Illustrator. So if you know the difference between Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop, that would be the difference between like a graphical editor and vector editor. Free version of vector editor would be like Inkscape and PowerPoint. But so these are like the tools that are available to you. But what is the difference between like a raster image and the vector image? Let me show you. So the main, like this is a raster image, yeah? So like this is an image. If you zoomed in here, you see like this pixel. So this is defined by pixels. So you lose the resolution. Versus this image here, these are just some shapes, some lines. All what this is just some lines. So if you zoomed here, like I just take this part and I zoomed in, I don't lose any resolution because these are not pixels, these are just some lines and shapes. So this is a raster image. So for a raster image, you would need something like Adobe Photoshop. This is a vector image. For a vector image, you will need something like Adobe Illustrator or PowerPoint, for example. Yeah? So fundamental difference, raster graphic rely on assigning pixel or color value. So here are different pixel and each pixel has a certain color value. So like working on a grid. So you have a grid or your canvas and then you assign like pixels. While the vector image are based on vector, lines and curves. So this all are line and curve. Resolution will get blurry if you resize it, will not get blurry with resizing it. Efficiency, this is for outline or simple like shape, simplest shape. Actually, let me, this is wrong here. Correct this guy here. Mixes them. So the simplest shape are pixels. So here the simplest shape are pixels, and this is here this outline. So this would be like lightweight version. Like the file size for this one would be generally like smaller than this one. The format for this one you get it like as a PNG, GPG or TIFF file, and the extension for this file will be SGV, for example, or PDF, or Adobe Illustrator, or EPS. So that is this, I think, is scalar vector graphic, if I remember correctly, something like this. Yeah. The editor. So here I'm like the one in blue. That would be the free editor. So that would be like Adobe Photoshop. Like if you want to edit an image like this, you can use Adobe Photoshop or like GIMP. That's like a free version of it, or MS Paint, for example. If you want to create shapes like this, you can generally use PowerPoint. That's what I generally use to create these things. I use PowerPoint. If I need more like advanced task, I would use Adobe Illustrator. Yeah. For publication, I would use Adobe Illustrator. For general figure like this one, I would use PowerPoint. Yeah. Or if I don't have Adobe Illustrator, I will use Inkscape. Tick plot, that would be for 3D image if I want to look at cross section or animate them or something like this. If I have 3D vector data, yeah, not 3D vector data. Okay. So the use of graphical editor. Why would you need like a graphical editor? Because sometimes you don't have enough autonomy over your figure and you want to make changes to this figure. So the graphical editor will give you the autonomy to change this figure and add to it, remove from it, or change it, or emphasize certain parts of it as you like. So basically, you use this graphical editor to gain autonomy more autonomy over your figure. So if you don't have enough autonomy, then you use this one. Or if it's like too much programming effort, like for example, like let's say I have a software that produces these things for me and I don't want to use Python or R or whatever to create, or MATLAB to create this subplot, and I just want to paste them in some canvas and just add like these labels myself, like A, B, C, and like add these things myself. So if you don't want to do this programming efforts, then you can use this graphical editors. And that doesn't mean that like you can do programming effort and still after you do programming, you can take I did this before, I will like do the programming, I get a figure that looks like this, but you still use a graphical editor to enhance it and make it even look better and have more control over it. So that will come to point number one. If you need a graphical editor, it is easy to work with them together. Like edit a raster image in a vector editor, or edit a vector image in a raster editor. So you can do both. Like I could have a raster image, but I want to add some labels, some letters, some lines, some things like that. So I could use like a vector editor, yeah. Or I could have opposite, like I could have like a vector image, some lines and things like this, and then I want to add a graphics or an image to it, like I want to add something that looks like this to it, or and then change it, like edit it or something like this. Or I want to draw something, like I have like some line and shape and I want to make some hand drawing on them. So that will be also possible, yeah. So typically you would work on both of them. So let me give you an example. So here I produced, or like I didn't produce this figure, but this figure was produced by or maybe I did produce this figure, I don't remember. But this is like, this data is not my data for sure, that's for sure. But maybe I just produce the figure, and I use a Python code, and this Python code like give me something that looks like this, yeah. Uh, Now this figure has problem. For example, like I might need to improve this, like instead of like HWI I like to put like highway, I need to put like city here. Maybe like two-seater I might want to, I mean you can just leave it as this, or you can just write 2 and make it capital and make this capital. Miles per gallon in so this basically like in the highway and the city for like different types of car, joy plot of city and highway mileage by class, something like this. So if I want to improve this figure and just like edit it, like I have different alternative. If I don't want to do any programming effort, I could just use a vector editor. Like so I could use a vector editor like PowerPoint and edit this figure in PowerPoint. I could create like a vector figure and manually edit it using Inkscape, which is a vector image editor. So I could, like when I save this figure from Python or whatever, I save it with a format like an SG format, then it would be a vector. Like vector means that I could access this guy here and change these text, like instead of like two-seater, I will write it like TWO-seater. I will make this capital. So I could access each of these. I could come here to this guy and edit it. I could come here to this guy and edit it. So that is the second thing. Another thing, I could just like create like a raster figure. What does raster figure mean? I will just create with Python a figure and save it as like PNG. I will create like a raster figure with Python, save it as PNG without like any of these axes, like without like two-seater, without this, and then I add this manually. Like so I add these 10, 20, 30, 40, like add this text here, add this here, add this manually, yeah, by PowerPoint, for example, or by Inkscape or something like this. So that are the three options that I have. I do like the required programming effort. So like I go to my script and I keep changing my script until I get exactly what I want. And then I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. Another thing, like I don't want to do any more programming and I just want to do the rest manually. So I will save this file as Python will save this file as an vector file, and I will edit it with a vector editor, or I will just save this as a regular file like PNG or like regular raster file, and then I will edit it, like add these without like any of these labels X on the X axis or the Y axis, and then I will label this with PowerPoint or Inkscape or whatever. Okay, so here this is like the strategy number 2 is that needing a graphical editor. So here I would need a graphics editor. So figure 1, this is a raster image, so that could be like a TIFF file. So I save this as a TIFF file without like any access. And then this TIFF file, like I will start editing it with the graphical editor. So basically I will just like here, two-seater, compact, mid-size. You see here the font size is small, I make it like larger. So I think I did this with PowerPoint. Yeah. So this is the original one, and this is just a raster image, and then you add these data by yourself. So you see this is clear, like here highways, this is cities, this is clear, this is clear. So that is this part. So, and here I followed the strategy number 2. I created a raster figure and edited. Yeah. I could also create a vector figure and then go to Inkscape, change the text, increase the font size, change the color of these guys, change the text of this guy. This is really up to you. Yeah. Okay, so a conceptual diagram, they have like different purposes. So they communicate key message, they provide an understanding of like the big picture, or they can tell a story, and so on and so forth. So for communicating complex idea using a conceptual diagram, this is the rule. Yeah, you can communicate complex idea in a simple manner. A good figure does not cause more confusion. So that's the most important thing. Like a good figure, like the reader, when he looks at the figure, he will increase in understanding, not increase in confusion. So how this is, it's like you follow this, like it's called like the KISS principle. KISS means keep it simple, stupid. That's what it means. Yeah. So you basically follow this like principle. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So you keep the figure, your conceptual figure, as simple as possible, but as informative as possible also. So making a conceptual diagram. So that's like how you do it. Think about the concept you want to show. What are you trying to represent? So that requires a lot of idea. What is the main message? What is the key points that I want to represent? And then after you write down the key idea, the key message that you want to present, now you see, okay, how can I present this key message in a simple manner? And then you use simple shapes to build this diagram. Yeah, you just start putting simple shapes together and you build your diagram. Here, this is an example of a conceptual diagram that shows a big picture. So here, this is a class exercise, like evaluate this conceptual diagram giving these 2 criteria. A good figure does not cause more confusion. Just keep it simple, stupid. So one misconception about conceptual diagram is that it should be like visually appealing and attract attention. That, I mean, if you can make it like this, of course, that's even better. But it's not required. You are not creating appealing art here. Like if the figure is very visually appealing, very visually attractive, but does not communicate the main idea clearly, or the reader after he or she reads it becomes more confused, then it's not a good conceptual diagram. Same with the visual abstract, which we will talk about next. Yeah. So this is not visually appearing, but it is. Let's see if it is informative or not. Like when you look at this, do you learn the story or like the method of this manuscript, or you don't? So try to pause the video and then take your time. You can spend as much time as you need to look at it, and let's see if this is a good conceptual diagram or not. Okay, so welcome back. So here, what is this conceptual diagram telling me? It's telling me like I have independent variable. So this is my independent variable, like the historic data. So I have like red tide, I have pollen, I have temperature, I have influenza, and I have tourism. So these are my independent variable. This is my dependent variable. Okay, and again, historic data. What is the dependent variable? Emergency department visit due to respiratory illnesses. So this is my dependent variable. This is what is changing based on these guys. So like red tide could increase or decrease like this emergency department visit. so is pollen, so is temperature, so is influenza, so is increase in the population. Like tourism will increase population, so you get more people coming to the emergency department. So now, by just looking at this, I know, okay, this is the driving forces and this is my dependent variable. I put these guys to a statistical exposure response model. You might not understand what does this mean, but this is fine. Because again, this is for, like, the reader of this manuscript should generally like understand, like, you would be reading, like, if you're reading this manuscript, then you should understand what this is. Yeah. Now, so this is historic data. Now, this is independent variable. Now, these are scenarios. Scenarios mean something in the future. So, red tide, I have 3-frame explorative scenario of low, medium, and high plume. So, this means like in the future. The pollen, I have like these two scenarios. The temperature, I have these two scenarios. The influenza, I have one only trend scenario. For the tourism, I have one historic scenario. So, this means that these are the scenarios that I will be investigating. Then I will, giving like this scenario, I will do like scenario analysis. 3 red tide explorative scenario crossed with 2 SP predictive scenario. So I will cross like these 3 guys with these 2 guys. This means for pollen and temperature resulting in 6 scenarios. So this means I will get like 6 scenarios. And this will be, this only one scenario. So that for each of the 6 scenarios, this will be used and this will be used. So now I know about historic data. Now I know about future data. So this will give me this model. I will parameterize the statistical exposure response model. Like the output of this step would be like parameterize the statistical exposure model. I will input my future data to it, and this will be my model output. Okay, so model output giving historic data and scenario, monthly hintcast and projection of the total number of ED visit, for example, and then so on and so forth. So that would be the output of this model. So by this figure, along with some text, you will just understand the method. Like you read the method and then you see it here. Okay, this is the historic data for the independent value. This is the historic data for the dependent value. You will input this to this model and calibrate the model. Now you have a calibrated model. What do we do with this calibrated model? I will input my future data and then I will do some projection and we will see what will happen in the future. Yeah. So now you learn it, the whole idea through just one figure. I was able to explain this figure in like 5 minutes, yeah, or something like that. A conceptual diagram, like I want to communicate key idea. Again, another class exercise. Evaluate this conceptual diagrams is giving those 2 criteria. Does it cause more confusion and is it simple? So let's read this figure. 4 approaches to incorporate multiple conceptual model in simulation optimization framework. So here I am running an optimization, but I have several models that I'm running like for the same thing, like the same phenomena. I have several I can conceptualize this phenomena in different ways. Now, and I want to run my optimization. So how would I run my optimization? So here I'm just showing you 4 approaches. Like you can do this in 4 ways. The first way is that you run your optimization on model number 1. You get optimal design 1. You run your optimization on model number n. You get optimal design n. And then you have, and all like the model 2, model 3 until model n, and then you analyze the results. So you said, okay, when I run it on this model, I got that. When I run it on that model, I got that. That's one way to do it. This independent model run. The other thing, cross-validating optimal design. So I have like several models. I run my optimization on this model. I get an optimal design. Then I test this optimal design on the other conceptual models that I have. Yeah. So I run this one here, I get an optimal design, I test it on the other conceptual model. I run this one here, I get an optimal design, I test it on the other conceptual model. And based on this analysis, I can find like my optimal design. Optimal design basically would be like the designs that will work on all the model, because I have a model designs that's based on this model, but I want to make sure that because this is just one conceptualization of reality. The reality could be this one or anything else. So I want to make sure that this design, if I have different conceptualization, it will work on different of them. Another way, I have like several models. I could average this model and then I run my optimization on this average model. So this is called like model averaging, and I'm giving here example of model averaging. And then concurring ensemble members, and I have different model. I just run the optimization on all these models, trying to find one design that will satisfy all of them, and that would be my optimal design. So you see here, I was able to communicate 4 approaches for doing simulation optimization, finding a design, giving the fact that you have different conceptual model. So here is one approach, another approach, 3 approach. So like look at this figure along with the text, then that will help you to understand these concepts. Yeah, 4 different concepts. Conceptual diagram, you also tell a story. That's like another very important. So for example, I have this encyclopedia article which I made it for educational purpose, and I want to communicate some stories in this article for students. So let me show you like an example. Let me show you like an example. So here, this is this article. So I have this article here, yeah. So you see here, for example, this is one story I'm telling. I'm showing like that the aquifer, it has, when I want, it has like aquifer performance factor and aquifer governance factor. So if you look at this figure, you will know the essential factor to consider when evaluating groundwater sustainability. Not only the aquifer performance, but also the aquifer governance. Here is another story that I am telling. Like how can you do like do the actual evaluation for groundwater sustainability. So here you have scientific knowledge, here you have precipitation, and then you have here the groundwater governance and infrastructure and the relation between these, and how you all these pieces should fit together in your evaluation. That's another story that I'm telling. This is a very intense story here, you see. So I created like this figure with the raster image editor. And actually, no, sorry. Like I created this with a vector image editor. So I created this with PowerPoint actually. Like this figure was just created with PowerPoint. And basically it tells a story. So what the story is it telling here is telling you like different groundwater dependent ecosystem. So if you don't know what is GDE, you read it here, groundwater dependent ecosystem. So here are different groundwater dependent ecosystem. Here I'm telling you the function, like what does this groundwater dependent ecosystem do? Like what the importance, sorry, not what they do, like what, like the importance of this groundwater. So they maintain water level, pressure, and fluxes, and they have by geochemical conditions. So the ecosystem services that this groundwater dependent ecosystem provides. So here I wrote them down like so. These are the ecosystem services. But now here the impact of pumping, like when I start like pumping groundwater and related human activity on groundwater dependent ecosystem. So you see like this number, like so you look at this system, you read this number, and then you will see like increased drawdown. Like so, for example, number 1, like you have this wet forest, and you have increased drawdown like phyretophytes. Like phyretophytes means like you have these trees and their roots are at the groundwater table. Yeah, phyretophyte will no longer be able to reach the water table. Yeah, so like these who will take like the roots go to the groundwater. If I pump the water, I will decrease this level, like this blue line will go down, and then this plant root will not be able to reach to the water table, something like this. So So basically, it just tells a story. Like you can go through this and you learn about groundwater. You can learn about groundwater dependent ecosystem by this, looking at this. Now, here's another figure. I'm here like I'm not gonna like communicating very complex ideas. So I'm showing you the level of uncertainty, the sources of uncertainty, the nature of uncertainty, and for each of these things, like what are the methods that you can use to address it. So that is huge, tons of information. I was just like able to communicate it with a figure. So again, I'm not gonna go through this figure one by one. You can look at it on your own about like the level of uncertainty, sources of uncertainty, and nature of uncertainty. Yeah. Things this. So you see here, like this is another thing. Like each of this figure is telling a story. Yeah. Now, finally, and the last part of this is like a visual abstract. So what is a visual abstract? So it's a concluding figure from your article. So this figure basically tell like the key take home of your article. Yeah, a figure captures the content of an article in a single glance. Yeah, so concluding figure. So this could be like the conclusion, like your main conclusion, or a figure captures the content, like your main message, your main take home of this article. Yeah. Like your main take home, or like the content, like your main section. One thing, it does not necessarily need to include like everything you did, but like your main things, the main content. Yeah. Why visual abstract? It helps the reader to quickly gain the overview of the work and understand the take-home message, and generate interest. Like so, be okay. Like if this is, you look at the visual abstract, you learn something from it, and then you say, I want to read the rest of this article. So what makes a good visual abstract? It should be concise. It should be, if you can make it like visually appealing, that is okay. If you cannot make it visually appealing, you don't need to, because again, you are not an like visually appealing or visually attractive. That's not the main idea of it. The main idea of it is that you provide a good visual summary that when the reader look at it, he will understand something. He will appreciate your work, and he will have interest to read your work, or he understands something like your main take home of this work. So this is an example of visual abstract, like concluding figure from a paper. So groundwater sustainability evaluation with the sphere number reflecting the increasing degree of integration. So basically, this figure will conclude this paper. Like if you want to evaluate groundwater sustainability, you need like multi-process modeling, you need participation, you need uncertainty analysis. That's, by the way, was like a review article. And then if this is different level of this evaluation, like if you're just estimating safe yield, you could be like at this inner sphere, like from here to here. If you want to estimate sustainable yield, it would be from here to here. If you're sustainable groundwater development, that would be like include these things, and sustainable groundwater management, then you will include all these different components in your evaluation. Yeah. So here, this is a concluding figure, like the summary of the work. This is here one showing like the content of the work. So basically, like here, I'm showing like this is the method. So this is a similar examples that I showed you before. So this is the method. This is the output of this method or of this work, and this is the impact or the importance of my work. So basically, like this is the methods that I'm using for the historic condition. I'm even putting my hypothesis: respiratory illnesses increase with increasing climate change. So stop this video, look at this figure, and so this is a visual abstract. This is the captions, the figure captions that comes with it. So look at this figure and see like if this is like a good visual abstract or not for this proposal. This was for a review article. This was for a research proposal. So again, let me just review some of the misconception about visual abstract. So one might look at this visual abstract and say, oh, it's not visually appealing. It does not have any picture. It does not need to be overwhelming graphics that are very much visually appealing. That's not what you want. Like, what you want is that you want to be simple, you want to be clear, and you want to communicate the message. Another misconception, like all the data or everything you did need to be visualized. Not necessarily. Just show the main things, the main components. So here I'm only like this proposal has much more than this, but I'm just showing the main things, what the key things that I want the reader to know, either before or after, like reading my proposal. Yeah. Another misconception is visual abstract can replace text entirely. No. Like, yeah, this is the visual part, but still I have some text with it that explains this. So the reader, like here, see, this is the visual abstract, but I have some text that explains this. So again, it's not just visual. You can add some text with your abstract to explain. So for example, this is, I'm telling you the objective, like groundwater sustainability evaluation. So you know, like this is for groundwater sustainability evaluation. You know what these numbers are. It's field numbers reflecting the increasing degree of integration. Okay. So here, like respiratory illness due to environmental factors such as red tide. So like you see these guys here, pollen, temperature, and are expected to increase under CMIP scenario. So like here, CMIP scenario for moderate emission and high emission. So now if you look at this guy here, like you don't know what's SSP 2.4.5. So now you know that this is moderate emission. 8.5, that's like high emission, something like this. Yeah, okay. So that is another aesthetic, like, or appealing graphic design, effective communication. Not necessarily. Like, effective communication is that you keep it simple and clear. That's the effective communication. You don't need some very attractive graphics or anything like this. Colors always enhance visual understanding. Not necessarily. Like, use only color as needed. So here, like, I'm using these color to just, so you can relate this to this, this to this, this to this, and this to this. Yeah. So I'm just using these colors here for purposes. If there's no need to use them, just don't use them. Yeah. Another thing is, like, visual abstracts are for experts only. Not necessarily. Like, if you read this visual abstract, if you have certain understanding of science and engineering, you should be able to understand it. So try it also to keep it not necessarily for, like, expert in your subject. Like, again, and expert and non-expert, you have to make a judgment about this. Yeah. Again, visual abstract does not need to follow the same template. So you will change the visual abstract or tailor it. There's like no, that's what I want to say. There's no one way of making a visual abstract. So you can just make it in a way to keep it like simple and clear. So whatever way you have to do it, whether you use images, whether you use text, whether you use a combination of images and text, whether you use like shape, whatever method you find, or whatever you need to make your visual abstract, just do it. Yeah. So these are some resources that I used to create this slide, and just there are some quiz question on Canvas. Just do the quiz question and you are done. Okay, so see you in the